Welcome on the Cosmic Atom. People do not have ideas. They're individuals behind ideas. Carl Jung. Have you ever felt as if the way you thought does not quite fit what the world expects of you? Perhaps you have been advised to be more logical when you are naturally emotional. Or maybe you've been labeled as too sensitive because you sense significance where others see none. Your mind is now working in a certain manner, whether you are aware of it or not, which dictates how you think, make choices, and interact with the environment. Jung felt that everyone fits into one of four basic personality types: thinkers, who are governed by cold logic and structure; emotional souls, who are motivated by values, connections, and purpose; and realists, who are based in physical facts and present reality. The visionaries are continually looking for hidden connections and future possibilities. You may believe you already know which one you are, but what if you've been living with the incorrect kind your whole life? Think about it. You've been conditioned to think in a certain manner from infancy. Your parents, school, and society encouraged you towards some habits while discouraging others. If you were a very rational person, you may have been advised to connect with your emotions more. If you were emotional, you may have been advised to be less sensitive. If you lived in your imagination, you may have been called a dreamer. And if you paid attention to details, you may have been labeled as overly strict from birth. You were being sculpted, molded, and conditioned to meet a certain expectation. But here's the issue. What if that expectation was never really yours? Jung argued that most individuals never examine the perspective through which they see the world. They believe their viewpoint is the only one. However, knowing your main function entails more than simply self-awareness. It is about power, because once you understand your mind, you can truly get control of your life. But here's what no one tells you. Your main personality function isn't the only aspect of you that counts. Something a lot more vital is hidden under the surface, deep inside your unconscious. Something that might explain why you have always felt that something was missing. Knowing how you think is one thing. Realizing what you've been neglecting your whole life is quite another. That's when the true metamorphosis starts. So let us begin. What kind are you? Because whether you know it or not, it has already influenced everything about you. Before we get into the four major personality functions, there is something even more fundamental that determines how you interact with the environment. Jung recognized two main attitudes that influence how we use our mental energy. Introverts are more concerned with their inner world, introspection and serious thought. Extroversion, oriented toward the outside world. Social interaction with environmental stimuli. Most people believe that introverts are timid and restrained, while extroverts are loud and gregarious. However, this is a myth. An introvert might be quite confident, yet they recharge by being alone and digesting their ideas inwardly. An extrovert might love quiet, but they get their energy from social contact and participation. Jung thought that neither was better nor worse. They are merely distinct modes of perceiving reality. But here is where things become interesting. Your personality is more than simply introversion or extroversion. These two mindsets serve as a bridge to something far deeper. The four main ways humans process reality. There are four personality functions. Jung recognized that each individual has a dominating style of reading the world. He divided this into four separate functions, including the functions of logic and analysis. Thinkers stress structure, problem-solving, and objective truth, while also considering the role of values and emotions. Feelings are concerned with relationships, harmony, and what seems ethically correct. Sensation, the function of palpable reality. Sensors depend on their five senses, which they trust to provide tangible truths and instant experiences. Intuition, the role of abstract, meaning allows intuitives to view beyond the current moment. looking for hidden patterns and opportunities. Each of us have a dominating function that shapes how we see the world. But here's the question: do you really know which one is yours? Or have you been trained to repress it? Because if you've been living outside of your genuine purpose, your life may seem more tiring than it should be. Decisions may seem forced. Your interactions may feel weird. But once you've identified your primary function, everything begins to make sense. You start to grasp why you think the way you do, why certain things deplete you while others make you feel alive. Until you make the unconscious aware, it will govern your life, which you will refer to as destiny. Carl Jung felt that most individuals never completely grasp their primary function because society expects them to be something they are not. However, understanding how you interpret the environment might help you make better choices, build stronger connections, and develop yourself. Leave a comment below. Do you consider yourself a thinker, feeler, sensor, or intuitive? What influences the way you see the world? And if you want to understand more about Jung's concepts and how they relate in real life, consider subscribing for additional information. Jung's idea of personality is not limited to the 4 fundamental functions. Each of these thoughts, feelings, sensations, and intuitions might appear in 2 different ways. Externally oriented on the outside world. Extroversion or inward attention on personal contemplation. Introversion. This results in 8 different personality types, each with their own style of processing reality. Understanding them is more than just identifying oneself. It is about comprehending how these unconscious tendencies have molded you. Some individuals, for example, are predominantly extroverted thinkers. They desire order, efficiency, and quantifiable outcomes. Their thoughts function similarly to those of engineers, building a faultless system and ensuring that everything operates in accordance with logic and order. They base their judgments on facts and prefer tried-and-true procedures over personal impulses. However, their desire for efficiency might lead them to disregard emotions as distractions rather than necessary components of the human experience. Their strength is their ability to design functional systems. Their flaw, however, is that they fail to recognize the human cost of these systems. Others operate via introverted thinking, in which reasoning is absorbed and thoroughly evaluated. These people don't merely follow rules. They demolish them, examining each assumption until only the most fundamental truth remains. Unlike their extroverted colleagues, they are more preoccupied with perfecting their internal knowledge framework than with arranging the outer environment. They may spend hours immersed in contemplation, honing their comprehension of an idea before saying anything about it. While this makes them exceptional at solving complicated issues, it may also make them seem unconnected, buried in their own thoughts, and unable to translate their discoveries into practical application. Then there are some who lead with an extroverted attitude, whose primary priority is harmony, connection, and emotional equilibrium. Their ability to read a room is almost natural. Sensing mood swings before anybody else does, they seamlessly adjust to social expectations, instinctively knowing what to say to make people feel noticed and understood. However, genuine empathy comes at a cost. They might get lost in the emotions of others, ignoring their own needs in the effort of preserving the peace. They flourish in positions where emotional intelligence is valued. However, when pushed into circumstances that need cold reasoning, they may feel adrift, as if they have been robbed of their innate abilities. Introverts, on the other hand, do not seek affirmation from others. They navigate life with an internal moral compass, making choices based on what feels fundamentally right rather than what is socially acceptable. While an extroverted feeler reacts to their surroundings, an introverted feeler remains steadfast, unwilling to compromise their fundamental values. They develop creative movements and ideas based on personal truth, yet their intensity of emotion may often alienate them. Because if their beliefs vary from those of people around them, they may find it difficult to express themselves, feeling as if they live in a world that does not understand them. Beyond thinking and emotion, some individuals see the world solely via extroverted sensation. These are the realists, the hands-on doers who are totally present in the moment. They do not speculate about life. They feel it. Every color, touch, taste, and sound is captured in high definition. They thrive in fast-paced circumstances, where their ability to respond quickly provides them an advantage. However, focusing on the now might make long-term planning difficult. They may follow one sensation after another, without pausing to consider where they are going. Introvert feeling types, on the other hand, analyze their surroundings via personal recollection and previous experience. They depend on what is well known, tried, and proven. Their brains function like a large repository, retaining facts that others miss. They find comfort and stability in what they already know. However, although their dependability is unparalleled, they're also resistant to change. They cling to the past, even while the world around them moves on. Then there are individuals propelled by extroverted intuition visionaries who live not in the present, but in possibilities where others see what is. They perceive what may be. Ideas continuously fill their thoughts, and they thrive on discovery, creativity, and making new connections. They travel from one notion to the next with unwavering interest, constantly looking for something just beyond the horizon. However, their energy may be chaotic, resulting in incomplete tasks as new ideas tug them in other ways. The issue is to learn to root their dreams in reality. Finally, introverted intuition works like a slow-burning fire, quiet, powerful, and profoundly perceptive. These people make unexpected realizations, yet they have been unconsciously processing patterns for a long time. They don't just perceive the world as it is. They can feel where it is headed. Their observations sometimes seem almost prophetic, as if they foresee events before they occur. However, since their thinking process is so personal, they often struggle to describe how they arrived at their findings, leaving others in wonder or confused. Each of these 8 kinds indicates a distinct manner of engaging with the environment, although no one is entirely one type. Jung felt that every one of us has a dominant function on which we depend the most, as well as lesser functions that work in the background. And now is when things become interesting. Our weaker function, the one we repress, contains the secret to balance. Many of our problems stem not from our dominant type, but from the portions of ourselves that we have overlooked. So the question is not just whatever kind you are. Our personality is more than simply one function. It's a hierarchy of mental processes that collaborate in a delicate equilibrium. Certain functions take the lead, influencing how you think and interact with the environment. Others work in the background, affecting you in subtle ways. And then there's the function you seldom perceive, hidden so deeply in your unconscious that if left uncontrolled, it may become your biggest vulnerability. Jung thought that everyone had a dominating function that they naturally depend on the most. It's as if the major character in your mind, the part of you that feels the most, is a thinker who will constantly gravitate towards logic and organization. A feeler navigates life using emotions and values, a feeling of trust, and what is concrete and present, while an intuitive is attracted to possibilities beyond the immediate. This main function emerges early in childhood and serves as the primary filter through which you see the world. However, no one works with a single function. If your dominant function is your mind's protagonist, the auxiliary function serves as a supporting character, offering balance and depth. A person with dominant thinking, for example, may have feeling as an auxiliary function, which assists them in staying connected to emotions when reasoning alone is insufficient. Similarly, someone who leads with intuition may use feeling as a supplementary function to remain anchored in reality. While the dominant function always has control, the auxiliary is essential for becoming a more versatile and full person. Then there's the tertiary function, which exists in the background, sometimes manifesting itself, but never completely formed. Some individuals develop their tertiary function as they age, while others scarcely perceive its presence. A strong-willed, extroverted thinker, for example, may possess tertiary intuition, which inspires periods of innovation and insight. However, since it is not their usual mode of operation, it stays undeveloped, appearing only in certain conditions. Finally, the inferior function is concealed deep inside the unconscious, the aspect of oneself that you least comprehend. However, the inferior function, which has the most potential for development, is a mere shadow. It defies control, behaves unexpectedly, and often manifests itself at times of stress or emotional turmoil. An extroverted sensor, for example, may have introverted intuition as their weakest function, which means they struggle with abstract concepts and long-term vision. Feeling may be a dominant thinker's weak link, making emotional circumstances overwhelming or difficult to negotiate. This is where things get fascinating, since although the inferior function may seem to be a weakness, it also symbolizes a missing element of your own development. Jung thought that real individuation, or the process of becoming complete, necessitated the integration of previously disregarded aspects of oneself. The mind instinctively rejects this. It is unpleasant to venture outside of your main mode of thinking. Therefore, a very rational person may feel uneasy while exploring emotions. A very sensitive individual may avoid addressing cold, harsh reasoning. However, if you disregard your weaker functions, you risk getting stuck in a rigid, one-dimensional version of yourself. Think about your own life. Have you ever struggled in circumstances when your typical style of thinking does not work? Maybe you're a strong, perceptive person who gets lost in ideas, but when it comes to practical matters, you freeze. Perhaps you are a very disciplined thinker, but when it comes to emotional sensitivity, you feel entirely out of your element. These bouts of frustration aren't unplanned. They indicate that your weaker functions are asking attention. So, what does this imply for personal development? It suggests that establishing functions outside of your comfort zone is one of the most effective things you can do as a dominant feeler. Practicing logical thinking may help you become more balanced. If you're a strong thinker, being vulnerable and emotionally open may lead to stronger interactions. If you depend on feeling, learning to accept abstract thinking may broaden your perspective on the world. And if you're an intuitive, being present might help you make your thoughts a reality. Jung did not believe in altering who you were. He believes in broadening your identity. Your primary function will remain your strength. However, the key to actual psychological development is learning to integrate the aspects of yourself that you've overlooked, since the more balanced you become, the more completely yourself you are. Much of who we are exists under the surface, beyond our conscious awareness. We prefer to assume that we completely understand ourselves, that our ideas, decisions, and actions are totally within our control. However, Jung claimed that this is an illusion that underpins all of our decisions. Behind every response, anxiety, and instinct is something deeper, the unconscious mind, which shapes us in ways we are unaware of. Jung felt that beneath this hidden world lives the shadow, the aspect of ourselves that we repress, dismiss, or downright reject. It contains everything we have been taught to avoid: angry, jealous, selfish, and vulnerable. Not because we lack these characteristics, but because we have been indoctrinated not to have them. When a youngster is instructed to always be pleasant, they learn to suppress their anger. Someone who has been chastised for expressing emotion begins to see vulnerability as a weakness. These rejected qualities do not fade with time. They seep into our consciousness, affecting us in the background. But the shadow does not remain quiet long. It manifests itself in unexpected ways, such as sudden outbursts of fury, patterns of self-sabotage, or an inexplicable hate for others that mirrors something we refuse to admit about ourselves. The more we ignore it, the more powerful its impact becomes. Jung saw the shadow as a gateway to self-awareness, rather than something to be dreaded. The idea is not to get rid of it, but to comprehend it, bring it to light, and incorporate it into our personality. Because when we stop avoiding the aspects of ourselves that we despise, we acquire something invaluable: completeness. Recognizing the unconscious factors that determine our personalities enables us to break free from habits we had no idea were influencing us. True self-understanding starts with consciousness. Understanding Jung's personality types is not only an abstract idea, it's a tool that, when used appropriately, may revolutionize the way you approach relationships, professional decisions, and personal growth. Most disagreements, disappointments, and misunderstandings emerge not because individuals are innately unpleasant, but because they see reality in different ways. Recognizing these distinctions may lead to improved communication, more informed decision-making, and a more happy existence. Take relationships as an example. A cognitive type and a feeling type may often collide. One focuses rationality, whilst the other seeks emotional connection. The thinker may disregard emotional concerns as unreasonable, whilst the feeling may see the thinker as cold or aloof. However, if they recognize their differences, they will be able to compromise. The thinker discovers that emotions possess their own type of wisdom, while the feeler understands that reasoning is not a denial of feeling, but rather a different approach of navigating the world and vocations. Knowing your main function might be the difference between feeling trapped in the wrong work and flourishing in an environment that matches your skills. An extroverted sensor, for example, might suffer in a sluggish, theory-heavy profession that required continual contemplation. However, they would thrive in fast-paced, hands-on work where rapid judgments are critical. Meanwhile, an introverted intuitive may feel exhausted in a workplace that requires frequent social interaction, but would flourish in a career that allows for deep thought and strategic vision. Problem resolution also appears quite different depending on the kind. Extroverted thinkers break down difficulties into stages and use external facts, while introverted thinkers consider all options before making a choice. Intuitives seek patterns and abstract answers, often thinking ahead of time. Unlike sensors, which concentrate on practical, immediate outcomes, identifying these inclinations not only increases individual efficiency, but also fosters collaboration rather than dissatisfaction over various techniques. People may see the value that others bring to the table. Self-awareness is really strong. Once you understand how you think, learn, and communicate, you can quit putting yourself into positions that do not match. You cease resenting people because they are different from you. Most significantly, you learn to navigate life in a more natural manner since you are no longer fighting your own thinking. Jung's personality theory inspired everything from contemporary psychology to job evaluations. However, throughout time, many of his concepts have been oversimplified, misconstrued, or misread. One common misperception is that these personality types are fixed categories that determine who you are and what you're capable of. In truth, Jung regarded them as flexible psychologic tendencies rather than labels that limited individuals to a particular style of thinking. A widespread misconception is that humans are just one of four types: thinkers, feelers, sensors, or intuitives. However, in Jung's concept, everyone has access to all four functions, although in varying orders of preference. Your dominant function may direct your decision-making, but your auxiliary, tertiary, and even inferior functions continue to have a role. Ignoring them completely generates an uneven self-perception, leading individuals to feel they can never develop in areas where they struggle. Another source of misunderstanding is the widely used Muay Thai Myers-Briggs type indicator, which was influenced by Jung's work but considerably changed his original framework. The meta-AI divides individuals into 16 categories based on 4-letter codes. For example, ITJ-SFP. It seems that personalities are stable and unchangeable, yet Jung never meant his typology to be a static categorization. He thought that personality formation occurs throughout one's life. He defined individuation as the progressive integration of distinct components of oneself throughout time. Furthermore, many people believe that introversion and extroversion in Jung's paradigm were the same as in daily life, with introverts being timid and extroverts being gregarious. However, for the Jung, these labels related to whether a person directed their mental energy inside or outside, rather than how sociable they were. Someone might be an introverted thinker who enjoys mingling, or an extroverted feeler who requires alone to process feelings. Understanding Jung's ideas as they were intended, rather than via simplified contemporary versions, provides us with a considerably more accurate and helpful framework for understanding not just personality types, but also the underlying mechanics of the human mind. Who are you actually? Not the version of yourself formed by expectations, nor the position you perform in society, but the person who lies underlying it all. Jung thought that most individuals never completely become themselves because they spend their life identifying with just one aspect of their psyche and rejecting anything that contradicts their notion of who they should be. Individuation is the process of undoing and integrating all elements of oneself in order to become complete. Unlike many psychological frameworks that concentrate on correcting certain characteristics, individuation is not about self-improvement. It is about self-realization. It entails addressing the aspects of yourself that you've overlooked, whether they're repressed emotions, lost creativity, or an aspiration you've been taught is harmful. Nature mentioned a similar concept when he talked of being who you are, implying that progress isn't about adhering to an ideal, but about accepting your inherent inconsistencies. Strength and fragility, reason and emotion, discipline and spontaneity. None of them are diametrically opposed, but rather constituent components of a bigger whole. This procedure is not simple. The mind resists change, and society often rewards individuals who fall neatly into preset categories. However, individuation is not about pleasing others. It is about attaining harmony. Someone who has been through this process does not only behave rationally or emotionally. They know when to depend on each other. They do not just follow structure or intuition. They realize the importance of both. They are not limited to a particular role, but may shift between facets of themselves as required. Most individuals have fragmented lives, detached from aspects of themselves that they never learn to embrace. However, individuals who have completed individuation achieve a unique condition of inner clarity in which their ideas, feelings, and behaviors coincide, not because they are flawless, but because they are genuine. As Jung phrased it, the privilege of a lifetime is to become your true self. The luxury of a lifetime is to become your true self. Carl Jung, most individuals never get to that stage. They live according to expectations, repress their inclinations, and overlook the underlying causes that shape their life. But individuation is not limited to philosophers and psychologists. It is a road open to everybody who is ready to explore inside. If this video makes you question how you think, feel, or process the world, it's a sign you're already on the path. However, knowing oneself is a continuous journey, and if you want to go further, I urge you to continue researching. Read the Jung psychological types. Nietzsche thus said Zarathustra or Marcus Aurelius meditations, to investigate how various minds approach self-discovery. And if you found value in this debate, consider subscribing to these concepts. They're just the beginning, and there is so much more to discover. We began our trip with a simple question: who are you? But, as we've seen, the solution is far from easy. Your personality is more than simply one function, one style of thinking, or one fixed classification. It is a complicated mix of strengths, flaws, and secret qualities waiting to be discovered. Jung's work serves as a reminder that progress does not need us to choose between logic and emotion, intuition and structure. It is about learning to integrate all aspects of oneself, known and unknown, conscious and unconscious. Individuation is not about becoming someone new, but about fully embracing yourself for who you are underneath the surface. So let me leave you with one last question. Which area of your personality are you going to explore next? Dear viewers, your support through Super Chat and membership is the only source of income that keeps this channel running. If you want me to continue uploading valuable content without delays and to stay motivated in providing you with the best wisdom, I need your help. Every contribution, big or small, makes a huge difference. Feel free to donate and support Pure Wisdom so we can keep growing together. Your generosity keeps this journey alive. Thank you for being part of this amazing community. If you're enjoying the content on Pure Wisdom and find value in the messages we share, I encourage you to subscribe. Based on the latest analytics, 93.9% of viewers are watching without subscribing. By subscribing, you not only stay updated with new content, but also support the channel's growth, allowing us to continue spreading wisdom for the chosen ones. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an important message. Let's build this community together.